in the Bundesliga. For more on the German top flight, let's welcome into the show Ale Moreno. Ale, great to have you with us. Not been the best week for Borussia Dortmund, so a much-needed win.
A much-needed win indeed. And when you think about what happened in their Klassiker and the conversation post their Klassiker, it was, well, the good thing about Borussia Dortmund is that they have a game in Pokal, and therefore they're going to have to be able to turn the page right away. They cannot think about their Classic anymore. They cannot think about that failure. They cannot think about the mistake from Gregor Kobel. None of that is happening because we're going to focus on Leipzig. We're going to turn the page. And the question I would ask to Borussia Dortmund after the game against Leipzig in Pokal is, how many pages do you need to turn? Because obviously that performance against Leipzig was not good enough. And so this became today a must-win match. And it's a game that they control for long periods of time. Certainly in the first half, they were much better than Union Berlin. There were a couple of moments initially where Union Berlin controlled the match. But for the last 30 minutes or so of the first half, it was all Borussia Dortmund. They should have been up by more than one goal. They were not. And what we see from Borussia Dortmund time and time again, and we have seen it over the course of the season, they always have mistakes in the back line. They always have that opportunity that is going to come about and is going to be gifted to the opposition, because simply they're not good enough defensively. And while it was a really good finish from Union Berlin, it's a ball that Niklas Süle doesn't even challenge, the long ball over the top. And you would think that a center back would be saying, oh my goodness, 50-yard ball, I'm going to clean out this striker because I'm going to go and win that header. And then you would think that once he loses the header, once he loses the challenge that he didn't even make, that he would at least trail the run, or he would at least chase the player that just beat him for the header. No, not even close. So it becomes 1-1. It becomes stressful. They need a mistake from Union Berlin in what was essentially the assist of the week from the substitute player Seguin that puts it into the path of Moukoko. They win it 2-1, and they'll just take the win whichever way they got it. It was stressful, more stressful than it needed to be, because they had been far better than Union Berlin in the first half. But in the end, Borussia Dortmund will take it. Big 3 points that keeps them in the race.
Stressful for Dortmund, Ale. Stressful for Bayern as well. They get just the 1-0 win against Freiburg. They do get their revenge, though. What do we make of the performance?
Much better than midweek against the same team in Freiburg. In this case, while it was 1-0, I think what is to be highlighted, and we have to point it out, is that Bayern Munich had a multitude of chances. They had chances everywhere. And when I say chances, I mean 100% chances. Leroy Sané in particular had at least 3 or 4. Serge Gnabry had a couple. They hit the post. Sadio Mane had a couple. Mark Flecken, the goalkeeper from Freiburg, had to come up with saves. And so I think you're encouraged by the fact that you created opportunities. You're encouraged by the fact that this was a team that played with a different intensity today. They were able to press higher the field, forcing turnovers from Freiburg. And so if you're Thomas Tuchel, you're thinking, okay, this is more like it. The problem is, if indeed you're thinking about making a run in Champions League and getting past Manchester City, those chances that presented themselves today, that you created today, you have to be able to finish against Manchester City, if indeed you're going to have an opportunity. I look at Bayern Munich. Today they created chances. They didn't have the final touch. Who's going to provide that final touch? We still don't have that answer. If you thought it was Choupo-Moting, well, he's out injured right now. Is he going to be available in the midweek? We don't know. And so it becomes this question of the flexibility and rotation in the attack that they have, because many different players appear in a goal-scoring position. Well, who's going to take the responsibility? So far, we don't have an answer for that.
No doubt, it's one of the marquee matchups of the Champions League quarterfinal round. Manchester City against Bayern Munich. There we see what the odds makers think. Craig, who's your favorite?
Well, I'm going to have to say Man City, but Bayern are clearly a huge threat. And for me, it's not about so much Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne and Jack Grealish and whoever, Riyad Mahrez. Because we kind of know City will create chances, dominate the ball, move it from side to side. It's a bad day at the office when they don't create quite a few chances in the game. For me, both in this game and in Munich, it's about how Manchester City organise the defensive aspect of the game when they're in possession and they lose it. Because they will lose it at times. Bayern will look to go and pinch it, and they'll look to poke those little holes where John Stones has stepped in or Ake's got forward. And Bayern are very good at that. And City, in this competition, have been very bad at dealing with that. Hence the reason that they've not won it and they've gone out at the stages they've gone out in previous years. And I think it's so important for Man City not to switch off when they're attacking. And if they can do that, I think they can win the tie over the 180 minutes. But if they're lapse and lackadaisical in defence again and make those basic errors, I think that's a carte blanche for Bayern to beat them. So it's kind of 50-50. I'm favouring City a little bit. But they've yet to prove, unlike Bayern Munich, that they can go over the line in these huge games in this competition. And that, if I was a City fan and if I was Pep Guardiola, that would be my big concern. Not that I'm not going to play well, but can I defend well in key moments of turnover?
I think that's the thing. Pep Guardiola just has to get this defence organised and prepared for Bayern's threat. But don't get cute. And I think Pep Guardiola at times has overthought his starting lineups, how he's kind of rotated players in and out for formations, and that's cost them in the past. This is a City squad that I think is built from back to front to win this competition. Let them go out and play. You've got the final piece of that puzzle. You've got a finisher like no other in the World Game today. Just keep everything else as it was designed to do. No reason to go and try to overthink Bayern Munich.
Ale, Munich or City? Who do you think's the favourite?
Well, given the fact that I'm covering Bundesliga, I feel contractually obligated to say Bayern Munich. However, it has to be Manchester City that are the favorites. Let's not forget, when we think of Bayern Munich in Champions League, perfect. But the whole season hasn't been perfect. There's a reason as to why Julian Nagelsmann is no longer the manager, and it's the fact that somehow Bayern Munich have found a way to be inconsistent over the course of the whole season. Thomas Tuchel comes in, you think that's going to change. The Klassiker happens, all right, everything is good. And then it's time to validate and follow up that result, and they are unable to get past Freiburg in the Cup. Today, a better version of Bayern Munich. We don't know what version is showing up in Champions League against Manchester City. We assume it's going to be their best version. But even their best version, it's going to be interesting to see Bayern Munich absorbing pressure. Bayern Munich more of a counter-attacking team, when usually every game that they play in the Bundesliga, they are the ones that are in the front foot. And what we saw today against Freiburg is a team that was pressing higher up the field, that was trying to force turnovers. If that's the way they approach against Manchester City, and Manchester City, with their quality, are able to play through them, I don't think that Bayern Munich is good enough defensively to keep up with attacking talent of Manchester City. I'm going to say Manchester City. I feel they have too many game changers, and I don't know that Bayern Munich has proven that they have a guy that can score the big goal in the big moment. Right now, as currently constituted, they just don't have that guy.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.